Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today I want to share with you some tips and tricks for seamless ink blending. So the first thing that I want to talk about is your ink choice. I would suggest using a water-based ink first, one that you know is going to do a good job blending and that is designed for that. I like to use the distress inks. That is what they are designed for, is for blending. Another thing to be aware of is your choice of blending tools. Now, I am going to use the mini ink blending tools. That is because that is what a lot of people have. They're easily accessible. What I would suggest if you are using ink blending tools, really any tool for that matter, is to have at least two. That way you can switch back and forth between two colors very easily. And I'll show you more what I mean when I do the actual blending. Something else you need to keep in mind is your choice of cardstock. You want to use a nice, smooth cardstock. Nothing with a coating on it or anything like that. I find those really hard to work with. So just a nice, plain, smooth, white cardstock. No special paper or anything like that. I know some people swear by like Bristol Smooth, and if that works for you, great. But I would suggest just a plain white smooth cardstock to begin with. Now with ink blending, practice is going to make perfect. I can't stress that enough. Just practice, 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 practice ink blending until you get the hang of it. And then once you have the hang of it, then go ahead and do those really large surface areas on your cards with your ink blending. But if you're not comfortable with those, something that really helps me and helped me in the beginning was breaking up that large white area with a stencil. So when beginning, I suggest blending through a stencil. And breaking up that white space can be a lot less intimidating as well. It also makes your ink blending look a lot smoother than it actually is, which is a huge help. So as I ink blend, I want to explain something else. Whenever you are ink blending, you want to choose the right colors. You want to choose colors that are going to blend together and create another pretty color. You don't want to blend two colors together and create mud. Now, I went ahead and just chose a rainbow. I know that's going to blend well. It's what I like to do on a lot of my cards. So I went ahead and chose a pink, an orange, a yellow, a green, a blue, and a purple. Now, before I even get started ink blending, I had a plan in my head of how I wanted this ink blending to go. I knew I had 6 different colors, so right where the green and the yellow meet, that needs to be the center of my card. I'm going at an angle here, so that center is going to be from corner, the top right corner, to the bottom left corner. So whenever I end up with that yellow, I need that yellow to end up in that top right hand corner down to almost the bottom left hand corner, if that makes sense. So you kind of want to split it in half. So always kind of plan out where you want your blending to start and end on your cards. Then, when you start blending, always blend between two colors. So I started blending between my pink and my orange. I had both of those daubers on my ink blending tools and I blended back and forth until I was happy with that blend. Then I'm moving on to the orange and yellow and I'm blending back and forth between the orange and yellow all the time until I get that blend that I want. That's why I said it's so helpful to have two of those tools going at one time. That way you're not constantly switching out your sponges. Now when you switch out your sponges, you're going to have to take them off of that sticky base and that Velcro, and each time you do it stretches out a little bit. One thing that I will tell you is old and used sponges work so much better than new sponges. Each time I have to get out a new sponge because my old one is just kind of deteriorating to the point I can't use it anymore. I hate it because I have to build up that ink inside it again to get that smooth blend. So use those sponges as long as you can because a dirty and used sponge is the best tool that there is. It seems a little counterproductive, but I promise the dirtier and older the sponge, the better it works. Now again, I'm going to be blending between those two colors at the same time. So here, I'm making sure that where that green and that yellow met, because those are my two center colors, is right in the center of my card. where I want that blending to be. Once I'm happy with that blend, I go ahead and put that sponge right underneath my little ink pad because that's where they stay. So each ink has its own little sponge. And then I go on and blend between the green and the blue. Now, as I'm blending, you can see I start off with a super light touch, especially on those really pigmented colors like the blues and the oranges and reds. If you get into those are super pigmented. Start with a light touch. You can always build up the color more and more and more until you're happy with it. You'll just give your arm a good workout. But one thing you can't do is take out a big blob of color. And if you aren't building up that color and you just go straight in, you're going to get those blobs, you're going to get those harsh lines. So always start very light to the touch, and then if you feel like you got a little bit too much on your sponge or you dipped a little bit too hard, dabbed a little bit too hard, always just blot off onto a scrap piece of paper. And that's what I like to ink blend over as well. A lot of people swear by blending on top of slick areas where they can kind of bring that ink into. I like to blend on to just scrap paper. That way that scrap paper catches all that extra ink. It keeps the back of my card clear as well, so it's not running through a bunch of ink splotches. And that just really helps me to be able to catch all that extra ink too. So those are a few tips that really help me. Now, I've blended through the stencil all of my colors. Kind of looks like a hot mess on top of the stencil, but look at it when I take it off. It is such a seamless blend, and just by breaking up those colors, it really helped getting that really great blend between all of the colors. And switching back and forth between the two colors is so helpful as well. So if you're intimidated by those large surface areas, break up that white area with the stencil. I can't tell you how helpful that is. Now, you have a lot of extra ink left over on your stencil, so here's a fun little bonus technique for you. Give that a spritz with water if you're using a water-based ink. I've also done this with pigment ink, but with alcohol. I will leave that video linked in the top right-hand corner. But just give it a spritz with water and then put it onto regular cardstock. Not watercolor paper, regular plain white cardstock, and just let it sit. Let that cardstock absorb that ink and that water, and you're going to end up with this really fun watercolor background. It's kind of the opposite print that you got when you ink blended through, but it's such a fun look, and it's a little bit messy, but I do love the look of that. Now to finish this card off, I just used this fun sentiment. This is brand new from Cracker Box and Susie Stamps. It's kind of perfect for this time we're living in right now, so I wanted to use it again on this very bright card since it's so cheerful. I matted it with some black cardstock just to help it pop out from that background and kind of separate it, but that finishes the card off. I hope you guys found some tips and tricks that can help you to get that seamless ink blended look. That is going to do it for me today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Happy crafting, everyone.